Auburn's offense is expected to take off this season, but do they finally have the offensive line and the quarterback they need to do work? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike Z. Thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, Brandon Marcello, sports analyst extraordinaire these days. Brandon, you're a busy man. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us. As somebody who has very good historical perspective on Auburn, I want to talk to you today about Auburn's offensive line, and then in the second half of the show, we'll get into Jackson Arnold and what the expectations should be on that young man this season. Let's start with the offensive line. I listened to recent comments that you made on the podcast that you guys got going, talking about Auburn's offensive line being in a better state than it's been in years. You know, what's your take on this offensive line? Share with our listeners right now, you know, where you see this offensive line and why this could be a key to Auburn moving that offense forward in 2025.
Yeah, on our show on CBS Sports called College Football Insiders, we talked to, people, sources on the ground at a lot of programs across the country. And one of our segments was dealing with, running back situations across the country. And one of them were Auburn. And we got into about the offensive line, and some of the feedback that we've been receiving from down there was that they felt really good about the lineup there and feeling like they have like 6 starters in a lot of ways. And obviously you can only put 5 on the field. And, they felt really good about this maybe being a great offensive line for them this season. And when I heard that, I said, I don't know if I've heard that myself, whether as a beat writer at Auburn for 7 years and now being away from Auburn for the last 5 years. I don't know if I've heard that in a preseason since 2014, maybe.
Wow.
Like going into the year, like them going, oh yeah, we got a great offensive line. And as there's been a lot of blame placed on the offensive line over the years. Like it's just always been like, well, that's the reason why we're not doing well. It's the offensive line. And obviously more goes into it than that, but it is difficult to argue when you watch some of the games, especially over the last, I would say 3 to 4 years. You're like, they just don't necessarily have the depth. They have some inadequate starters, guys that are just average and aren't getting above average. And, I don't know if you can say that this year. We'll see when the games start, of course. I mean, everything changes when you get out there, but I think it's a good combination for Auburn. If there is really, truly a great offensive line there, when you got a guy like Connor Lew there at center and you build around him, but also future NFL guys. I mean, for the first time in a long time, it seems like there might be 2 or 3 guys that can make the NFL here very soon from that offensive line. And it's been a while since we've heard that at Auburn. But you couple that with Jackson Arnold, who last season obviously was criticized a lot at OU, ended up being benched. But they dealt with a lot of injuries, especially at receiver last season at OU. So that was a struggle for him. And their offensive line was not good at OU last year. It was terrible. He got sacked 34 times. He fumbled the ball 12 times. And there were some games early in the season, if you go watch the film, where he was having to carry the team on his back by running the ball, even when he didn't feel like he needed to run the ball, either because he was about to get pursued and get sacked, or he kind of had to check out of a play and run it himself because he didn't feel comfortable with his receivers out there. Those excuses, and I say excuses, but those reasons shouldn't be excuses this year at Auburn with the offensive line they have, and obviously with the receivers they have. Man, it's a top 5 group in the country right now. Yeah. And there's no reason for Jackson Arnold to be replicating any type of numbers he had in the negative last year. So if you're an Auburn fan, a lot of reasons to feel good. And I think you'll see a Jackson Arnold this year that's able to kind of live up somewhat to some of those expectations as a former blue chip, quarterback.
In talking about highlighting the problems Oklahoma had on offensive line last year, I don't think that gets talked about enough. He was running for his life, and a lot of the turnover numbers were fumbles because of that a porous offensive line.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be a problem. Hugh said he talked to a scout that said he's got 6 guys that would receive draftable grades along that offensive line this year. That's got to be great news. Like I know, average time to throw about 2.5 seconds. If you're holding on to the ball any longer than that, unless your name is Cam Newton, it's going to be a disaster. So Jackson Arnold playing with the offensive line that he needs, and hopefully that we see some improvement there from him. What does a successful season look like along that offensive line to you, Brandon? In terms of maybe sack numbers given up, or like, when you look back on this, what do you need to see from Auburn's offensive line to say, hey, look, but those guys had a really good year and they really set Auburn up for success?
Anything less than 2 sacks a game, an average there would be good. I think the numbers will be better than that. You got to run the ball. They feel really good about the running backs they've got. But you got to be able to run the ball. Everybody talks about being balanced on offense, but real balance on offense is being able to run the ball when you want to and being able to throw the ball when you want to. And so if you want to throw the ball 40 times a game and you can do it, then that's a balanced offense. If you want to run the ball 50 times a game and you can, that's a balanced offense. It's not about the statistical numbers as far as the division there. Listen, it's as simple as this. Auburn's got the roster now. They need to go win.
Yeah.
They need to go win 8-9 games. And anything less, I think, would probably not set very well with Auburn fans.
Yeah, I'm going to get a prediction from you in the second half before we get out of here on that record. But Auburn's offensive line helped produce the second leading rusher in the SEC last year in Jarquez Hunter. He only had 187 carries. The guy who led the conference, Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson, he had 252 carries on the season. Mm-hmm. So he carried the ball a lot more than Jarquez did. I by the averages, if Jarquez had gotten those numbers, he may have led the conference in rushing. Hugh Freeze received a lot of criticism last year for maybe not giving Jarquez Hunter the ball enough at 6.4 yards per carry. How do we get Hugh Freeze to break this tendency of throwing the ball when you've got a guy who can average over 6 yards a carry?
Well, I think what the real criticism there last year is just because there were so many turnovers at the quarterback position, throwing the ball ineffectively. I can see why he wanted to throw the ball maybe in situations where fans thought they could run it, because he's trying to get a talented group of receivers to kind of congeal and come together and also get some confidence in the quarterback spot. Also, maybe if you hand the ball off an additional 5 to 7 times in a game, that doesn't sound like a lot. But doing so, I know this is going to sound weird, doing so plays into a defensive coordinator's hands so much easier. It just does, because you're giving up 5 to 7 plays, extra running plays that you would say, hey, we should have ran the ball here or there. You can pick those out, right? But that's 1 extra or 2 extra series potentially if you combine all those plays, when we're talking about 3 and outs or a drive that ends up going 6 plays or something like that. So I can understand that. It's as simple as this. They just need to do a much better job protecting the quarterback and throwing the football this year. That more so than play calling or anything along those lines is what hindered Auburn last year.
Hugh Freeze, earlier this week, the coaches had a huddle and they talked about play calling. Apparently, Derek Nix handles first down play calling. Ken Austin handles third down, and Hugh Freeze reserves the right to jump in whenever he feels like it. Sounds a little chaotic to me, Brandon, but the bottom line is exactly what you said. It's got to work. They've got to win football games. So if it works, nobody will be questioning it. Look, let's talk about Jackson Arnold after the break here. We're going to talk about what he needs to do, what it looks like, and what does it result in for Auburn. We'll talk about that and more right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's right across the street from the Chattahoochee Valley Community College, next to Renfro's Supermarket and Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault. If you're in the Columbus, Phoenix City area and you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. This episode of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Also want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code GET YOUR WEIGHT UP for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamala grills. The summer is here. You want to be outside grilling on a Golden's Cast Iron grill or just staying in shape with some Golden's Cast Iron weights. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also want to thank our friends at setsforsociety.ai. Get to know yourself with Sets for Society. They have custom personality assessments to tell you more about how you relate to a team or how a team can relate to you. Do you want to know how to be a better coworker, a better teammate, maybe just a better partner? Setsforsociety.ai has the solution for you to get started on that journey today. Again, visit setsforsociety.ai today to get your custom personality assessment started now. Let's jump back into our conversation here. All eyes are going to be on Jackson Arnold come August 29th when Auburn goes to Waco to play Baylor. There's been a lot of chirping back and forth from both sides on this one. A lot of folks on the Baylor side highly invested in that 5-7 record. Don't think that Auburn is a very good football team. A lot of folks on the Auburn side saying, hey, look, we know we went to 5-7, but we were close to something special. And if our kicker doesn't get hurt and we have a quarterback, it looks a lot better. The focus is going to be on Jackson Arnold, though. With this receiver room, I have to believe there's not going to be a lot of tolerance for poor QB play with as much as they've invested in the tools around him. You know, what do you see the rope for Jackson Arnold being under Hugh Freeze in year 3 here? They've got the young talented guy, Deuce Knight, who seems to have come along a lot faster than a lot of people thought this spring. But Jackson Arnold is going to be the first guy out, and I think Auburn is hoping that he's successful.
Yeah, unless it's an absolute disaster in game 1, I don't see how you bench him in game 1 and bring out Deuce Knight on the road, especially in a Friday night game. That's a Friday night game, right? So
yeah, it is.
You can't do that. But I would think his leash is going to end up being a few games. But again, it's going to have to be pretty bad and disastrous. They're going to give him. Listen, they invested in him to come to Auburn. They're going to give him a longer leash, and he should perform much better than what he did at OU. Having said that, going into the game, I think on paper you could argue, and I don't think argue, but you can just straight up say Sawyer Robertson at Baylor is the better quarterback going into this game until Jackson Arnold proves different. That's going to be the storyline going into this, and it's whether Jackson Arnold can, punch finally in his own weight class and then go above that, because he should be better than a Sawyer Robertson. But right now he's not. He's not getting the benefit of the doubt because of what happened there at OU last season.
Yeah, and certainly, and you know what? He's definitely not getting the benefit of the doubt because of who his coach is and what he's done with quarterbacks. The first couple of years at Auburn, Hugh Freeze hung his hat on 2 things coming in the door. He said, we turn programs around quickly and we develop quarterbacks. I would say that from a recruiting standpoint, they certainly have done a good job, but it hasn't resulted in the type of wins on the field that Auburn's administration and Auburn fans are going to hope for. Look, at the end of the day, what does a successful season look like, do you think, for Jackson Arnold? Auburn rarely has 3,000-yard passers. Even Cam Newton didn't get the 3,000 yards passing in his Heisman season at Auburn. Jarrett Stidham did it. I think Damian Craig did it. Sam White did it. It's been only a handful that have done it. Could Jackson Arnold be Auburn's next single-season 3,000-yard passer, or is the ceiling way over that for him with this wide receiver room?
Yeah, 3,000 yards would be a good target. Also just simply have a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, which isn't very hard to get these days. You throw 20 touchdown passes with 10 picks. That's kind of just average these days, but that would be a very good start for Auburn, considering where they've been the last 2 years, and for that matter, the last 5-6 years at the quarterback spot. So that's what I would kind of aim for as far as judging what would be a successful season for him. Of course, things will come and go. They will change. We don't often see a quarterback get through an entire season completely healthy. Even if they're playing, they're really hampered at times, and you can see it in their production numbers and also the game plan. They kind of go away from the quarterback and they start doing things that aren't necessarily in his wheelhouse because they don't want to risk further injury. But I think those are solid numbers to aim for.
What do you think here? before we get out here, I got to get you on the record. What do you think in terms of record for Auburn this season? Give me your season prediction for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it too much, but I'd say 8 wins. An 8-4 record without even really looking at the schedule. Just knowing that you don't have to go to Alabama and Georgia on the road. Of course, that being this year, you don't have to deal with that. You should aim and hope for 8 wins. Anything below 8 wins will be a disappointment. It'll be termed a disappointment by all the fans there, and I think that's fair. In year 3 at Auburn, a place like Auburn, you should be winning at least 8 games, especially if your first 2 years were the way they were these past 2 seasons, where you're having losing records or you're barely making a bowl game. 8 wins or better. That needs to be the goal.
I agree with you. Look, I think under 8, you got a lot of really tough questions to answer, especially with as much has been invested in recruiting on the Plains here. 8 wins, especially with the schedule, Brandon. You covered Auburn for a long time. This is the easiest Auburn schedule I've seen in quite some time. After Georgia, you get Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mercer. And I bet good money on Auburn in all 5 of those games. So if you can get through Georgia 4-2, you've got a chance to do something pretty special this season, certainly. Brandon, I want to thank you for joining me today. As always, before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Just check out cbssports.com and check out our new podcast, College Football Insiders, where we're getting scoop and sharing it out there on the podcast for the first time, and it's been going very well.
It has. Guys, do me a favor. Find College Football Insiders on TikTok, on Instagram, and subscribe to them. They're doing great work over there. That's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, Warriors.